In 1944, a man arrived at a Nazi concentration camp with nothing. No name, no possessions, no certainty of surviving the next hour. They took everything from him, his clothes, his manuscripts, his pregnant wife. But there was one thing, one very specific thing, they could not reach. And that thing became the most powerful idea of the 20th century. His name was Viktor Frankl. And what he discovered inside the camp, not despite the suffering but because of it, is the key to understanding the prison you are living in right now. A prison far more sophisticated than barbed wire. A prison with no guards, no walls, no locks. A prison made entirely out of your own mind. There was once a bird that had lived in a cage for so long that when the door was finally opened, it did not move. It hopped to the edge. It looked out. It felt the air on its feathers for the first time in years. And then it stepped back inside. Not because the door had closed, but because somewhere in its nervous system, the cage had become more familiar than the sky. This is not a story about a bird. Dostoevsky, who spent 4 years in a Siberian labor camp, wrote something that no psychologist has ever said more precisely. The degree of civilization in a society can be judged by entering its prisons. But the prison he was describing was not the one made of stone. It was the one the prisoners had built inside themselves, long before they ever arrived. Psychologists call it learned helplessness. In the 1960s, Martin Seligman placed dogs in a cage where they received mild electric shocks, shocks they had no way to avoid or stop. Later, when the cage door was opened and the shocks became avoidable, something disturbing happened. The dogs did not move. They lay down. They accepted the pain, even though the door was open, even though escape was one step away. They had learned, deep in their nervous system, below the level of reason, that effort was useless, and human beings are not different. Every time you tried and failed in front of someone who mattered, every time you were told your dream was too large, every time you reached for something and it was taken, your brain registered a lesson. The lesson was not, try differently. The lesson was, stop trying. And slowly, without announcement, without drama, you built a ceiling, not in the room, in your mind. And you began to live in a space that was not limited by what the world would allow, but by what your past had taught you to believe was possible. It is not the mountain we conquer, but ourselves, Edmund Hillary once said. Viktor Frankl understood this from the inside. Stripped of everything, watching people die around him daily, he arrived at a conclusion that defied every material condition he was living in. Everything can be taken from a man but one thing, the last of human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way. Viktor Frankl, Man's Search for Meaning. Read that slowly. He was not writing that from a comfortable study. He was writing it from inside a death camp, watching people give up and die not from the cold, but from the moment they decided that meaning was gone. The prison was not outside them. It never was. If something in this is cracking something open, subscribe. This channel goes deeper every week. Press the button now. What comes next might be the most important part. Simone de Beauvoir, the philosopher who perhaps most clearly articulated the prison of self-limitation, wrote something that cuts through every excuse we give ourselves. One is not born, but rather becomes oneself. Simone de Beauvoir, The Second Sex. You were not born limited. You became limited. Through repetition, through fear, through the accumulated weight of every moment you chose the familiar over the frightening. And the terrifying corollary is this. If you became your prison, you can become your freedom. But that requires something that most people will not do. It requires sitting with the most uncomfortable question in human existence. Kierkegaard, the Danish philosopher who spent his life writing about the terror of genuine self-confrontation, called it the leap. Not a leap of faith toward God, as it is commonly misunderstood. A leap into authentic selfhood. A willingness to stop performing the version of yourself that your fear created, and begin inhabiting the version of yourself that your deepest nature demands. The most common form of despair is not being who you are, Søren Kierkegaard said. The most common form of despair, not losing someone, not failing publicly, not poverty or illness, not being who you are. And finally, from a tradition older than all of them, Lao Tzu wrote 6 words that contain everything. Knowing others is wisdom. Knowing yourself is enlightenment. The prison is not built from what you do not know about the world. It is built from what you refuse to know about yourself. So how do you unlock a prison made of mind? You cannot break these walls with effort alone. You break them with awareness. Here are 3 practices, not motivational exercises, but genuine psychological tools. Key 1. Name the ceiling. Take a piece of paper. Write this sentence at the top. I could never. Then finish it, as many times as it comes. Do not judge what appears. Just let it come. What you have written is not a list of your limitations. It is a map of your cage, and you cannot escape a prison you refuse to see. Key 2. Find one piece of counter-evidence. For every belief on that list, find one, just one, moment in your life where it was not true. Your brain built the ceiling from evidence. It will only dismantle it with evidence. One crack is enough. The mind only needs a single contradiction to begin questioning a wall it assumed was permanent. Key 3. Practice the daily defiance. Frankl's method was not to deny his circumstances, it was to choose his response to them. Every day, identify one moment where you would normally shrink, and choose differently, not dramatically, not heroically. One small choice, made consciously, because freedom is not a destination you arrive at. It is a muscle, and it only grows through use. Do you remember the bird, the one that stood at the edge of the open cage, and stepped back inside? What nobody tells you about that bird is this: the cage door never actually closes. It was open the day you stopped trying. It was open every morning you chose familiar pain over uncertain growth. It is open right now as you watch this. Viktor Frankl survived Auschwitz not because he was stronger than those who died. He survived because he refused to let the Nazis build a prison inside his mind after they had already built one around his body. He chose the last freedom. The question is whether you will choose it too. Not in a camp, not in a crisis. In the ordinary Tuesday morning of your ordinary life, when no one is watching, when nothing dramatic is happening, when the phone is right there and silence is uncomfortable, and the old story is so much easier to believe. What is the one belief you keep returning to that has been keeping the door closed? And what would your life look like if, starting today, you simply stopped believing it? Leave your answer in the comments. I want to know which cage you are walking out of. If this reached something real inside you, subscribe. Every week we dismantle one more wall. Next video is already written, and it will be harder to ignore than this one.